I know some of you may not like it, but these new changes coming to the SEC, it could help Auburn.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The everydayers know this, but every Tuesday we celebrate Charlie Tuesday by being joined by Auburn message board legend Charlie 5. And we're starting to see some reports, Charlie 5, trickle out throughout the national media about how the SEC is going to deal with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma regarding scheduling. Because we all agree there's a bunch of flaws in the current scheduling system. What a great way we can kind of relaunch it and rebrand it in a way that benefits the entire conference. So just to catch everybody up to this point, there's been really two options that have been discussed. There's been 8 games, which you already play 8 games. Yes, but there's protected rivalries. There's multiple protected rivalries. That's not going to be the case anymore. In this 8-game model, there would be one protected rival. So for Auburn, that would be who?
Alabama.
The Iron Bowl would stay intact, we assume. And then the other 7 would rotate. The other one is 9 games, which I have been pro for most of it. You're giving the thumbs down because then you would have 3 protected games and the other 6 would rotate. And the idea of this is you get to every student athlete, if they played 4 years, they would get to play every other team in the SEC. I believe in both locations. I believe that's the thought process there. I'm not exactly positive how the math works out, but that's a big part of the thought process behind these. And as talks have gone on and on and on, Charlie 5, it seems like the more likely option at this point is the 8-game model, meaning Auburn would lose Georgia, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, would go away and no longer be an annual game.
So sad.
A lot of people are going to be bummed by this. You and I.
Not I.
This is better for Auburn.
Oh, this is great. I mean, this is perfect for Auburn. I don't want to hear I know it's going to be in the comments. Oh, to be the best, you got to beat the best, and blah 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 blah. I don't care about that. Okay, what I want the best road, an equal road, the most equal road for everybody to get to the playoffs, SEC championship, whatever. And playing the 9-game model with the three permanent rivalries of like Alabama, Georgia, and LSU or whoever else it was we're going to put in there. It's suicide. I mean, it's impossible to continue to do that over and over every single year. I know we've done it at times in the past, but if you want to have these flash in the pan seasons every so often, fine. If that's what makes you content, great. I would much rather have a more sustainable path of success. And this seven rotating teams model with only one permanent is fantastic. Here's another thing: we get to play a lot of different teams, like all the time. Your schedule's different, like all the time, and that's what I know. We rotate in the 2 Eastern teams or whatever every so often. We play like a home and home, and then it rotates. Like this is going to be like it's like new football every single year. And I personally love that. I think it's a lot more fun, brings open a lot more opportunities for different road trips, like quickly, not having to sit there and wait for the
right, every 4 years. That's the point. Right.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. It's not like, fan. Okay, we played Florida. We'll play them again in a decade. You know, that's not really kind of what we're looking at anymore, which is solid. But I think with the expansion of the college football playoff to 12 teams in the future, and Hugh Freeze's vision to getting there, I think this just makes sense to be excited about if you're Auburn. And none of this is official. This is all just kind of reports. 247's got some national stuff out there on it. SI put something out on it. Monday night, but I think this is I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for Auburn that the path to the college football playoff hypothetically gets easier. But let's just be clear. It doesn't get easy. Like when all of a sudden people are like, well, you got to beat the best. Well, win the SEC. If you keep winning games in the SEC, you will play the best teams. Like
exactly.
It's just so, like, can you just imagine if it's set up in a similar way than it is now, and we assume that divisions will be out, right? And so it's the top two teams. And let's just assume you're Auburn and your protected rivalry is the Iron Bowl. You got to, and let's say maybe you don't play a Georgia, but you're probably going to play an LSU or, somebody else is a top 5 team. So let's say you beat LSU one year and then you find a way to beat Alabama. They're undefeated. You beat them. And then depending on how other things happen in the SEC, in the SEC championship game, you'd either play Alabama again or you'd play Georgia. And then all of a sudden, like if you're not doing enough and you're in one of these hosting sites, let's say you're an 8 seed or something like that, you would host another team and you've got Oregon coming to Auburn to play in this playoff, or Ohio State or USC. And let's say you win that game. Then you got to play Alabama or Georgia again. And like,
there's no avoiding it.
Yeah. It's no reason to play them 3 times a season. There's just no value in that.
Absolutely not. And I think, and I'm hoping like maybe we can get to a point, and this is going to be a little bit of a sidetrack, but like get away from like start putting more value on playoff appearances and conference championships and things like that than rivalry wins. I keep seeing these tweets are like, I know, and this we were talking about Georgia and this is Alabama, but we're 0-6 versus Alabama. This in the big 3 sports that stinks, whatever. And it's like, okay, but in 2 of those 3, we went to the tournament. We went into the national the tournament for baseball. We're a regional host in baseball. That is the number one, almost the number one goal.
Yeah, got a better seed. Got a better seed than your rival did.
And we're sad about losing to Alabama. Like, who cares? We're hosting a freaking regional, and we made it. We made it to the NCAA tournament basketball, which is one of the very few times we've ever made it. So like, I'm hoping maybe this is something, a start of something. Maybe we can kind of get to where we've got pathways now, or we're working on pathways to get to postseason. That's what I want to see. I want to see postseason, not rivalry highlights. Like I'm ready for it.
I'm with you. And we're going to talk about all of those big 3 sports today, something a little different, but there's just news all over the place. Coming up, Lindsay Crosby, baseball's Lindsay Crosby. We'll preview the Auburn Regional. That's in the 3rd segment. But coming up, Johni Broome, he's back. And the Auburn basketball team should be very, very good this upcoming season. We discuss that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Charlie 5, when you have a snack, do you want there to be 1,000,000 calories in it?
Absolutely not.
Do you want it to be
Tasty?
Disgusting?
No, I like tasty.
Okay, Built Bar sounds like something that you might be interested in because it's delicious. Every bar is covered in delicious, decadent chocolate, very high in protein, very low in calories. So those checks off all of the boxes of the things that we just described in a snack. And so Built, go to Built.com. They've got all kinds of different flavors. Do you like options, Charlie 5? Or do you want to be like tied down to one thing?
I prefer multiple options.
Once again, available. Built Bar seems to be the option. Do you like the ability to order and wait? And also, if you really just have a hankering, you can go and get one yourself. Once again, more options. Is that something that appeals to you?
You kidding me? I got options. Count me in.
Built bars are now they're now available to be found in Walmart, Sam's Club, and several other local grocery stores, as well as Built.com. And if you order online, use promo code LOCKEDON15, all one word, no spaces, LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. Charlie 5, Johni Broome, the Auburn center, tested the NBA waters. Bruce Pearl kind of said yesterday on Twitter that he would have gone in the 2nd round. I don't know if I fully buy that, but I think it's great marketing. Bruce Pearl, well done. I'm not going to argue with you because you are way smarter than me. But Johni Broome is back, which kind of got a little testy. But I'll tell you what, Charlie 5, as soon as he started kind of like teasing Auburn fans a little bit, like Auburn people, Monday's going to be big. And then yesterday, he tweeted out like Auburn family with a heart, and everybody's like, "Oh no, he's gone. He's gone." I'm like, "No, I don't." That would have been bad. Like, that would have been a bad look if he was like teasing folks and then didn't come back. So I'm glad. I'm glad that he told the staff yesterday that he was returning.
I wasn't going to get nervous until I saw us bring in another big on a visit out of the portal, because I kind of feel like Johni wouldn't leave Bruce hanging like that. You know what I mean? Like, that would be big time to take us all the way to the, all the way to the end and kind of, and then drop us right there at the end without an option to replace him. I was, if somebody came in on a visit, I was going to get nervous. I was waiting for the, let's run this back graphic or whatever it says.
He says, I'm back, I think is what it said.
So,
and he was very large on that court in that graphic, by the way.
Yeah. And I mean, let's just say what it is. Like, more than likely this was hey, look what I did in the workouts. I could go in the second round. Hey, you got to help me with NIL. Like, it could have been, so there was probably some negotiations there too. So, and
it's my understanding he was pretty well taken care of already.
Sure. But, his value right now,
it's up.
I was having this conversation with somebody. I felt like his value at this moment may be as high as it could possibly get. And I say that because he's not going to get taller. He's not going to get faster. He's not going to jump higher. He went in and he performed at an extremely high level against high level athletes, and kind of dominated, if we're just going to be honest. So I was like, man, if there's ever a time where he could, leverage anything, right now is it. So, and I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but I'm sure there's a lot to do with that as far as the timeline and how things worked out. But glad to have him back. Man, he could. I mean, you're talking possibly the confidence that he has to have coming off of those camp circuits and workouts. I mean, he's got to be. I mean, you could be talking about a possible All-American type season.
What he did was great. He was just so limited because he was in foul trouble all the time. Our Locked On college basketball host called me when the Johni Broome stuff, when he started like really popping at the combine. He's like, dude, where was this all season? I'm like, he was on the bench because he was always in foul trouble. Like, he would take a step and you'd hear a whistle. And so I think that's something he can get better at. I think that's certainly part of it. Can he be available more? And once again, if he's able to play as much as I think Bruce Pearl and Johni Broome want Johni Broome to play, his stats are only going to improve. So we lost Charlie 5. We'll try to effort his return in a second. But I think when you look at what Johni Broome offers as a center, with Dylan Cardwell probably offering 10 to 12 minutes behind him, I think that's a solid situation, especially when you pair it with this new group of guys that are going to come in and start with Aiden Holloway leading the way at the point, Trey Donaldson behind him, and then the other transfers that are coming in, Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, and then Chanley Johnson. I mean, all of a sudden, Bruce Pearl may have more three-point shooters on this team than he's ever had since he's been at Auburn. And like, I know everybody's like, well, the Final Four team, he had Bryce and he had Jared and those guys. And it's like, yeah, those guys are very, very good. But I think this is going to give you more options, which is something that, man, we've definitely seen this team need over the last 2 seasons, because when everybody went cold, it's like we ran out of options as far as guys that we could turn to step up outside of a Jabari Smith. And those guys just aren't going to be on the roster every single year as we saw a year ago. And so just on nights where, maybe Aiden can't get it going, you can throw it to a Denver Jones a little bit more, or Aiden or a Chanley Johnson or a Chad Baker-Mazara. Then all of a sudden, maybe Katie Johnson's role looks a little bit more natural, and he possibly becomes a more efficient scorer, kind of like we saw him do his freshman year at Georgia. And so there's just so much to love about this roster now that Johni Broome is officially coming back. And this is a big roster. I mean, all these guys are like 6'7" or better. This is going to be a team that's going to present a ton of matchup problems for opposing teams in the SEC on both sides of the floor. On the offensive side and the defensive side, there's folks that were kind of concerned about rebounding. I don't think that's a concern anymore with Johni Broome coming back. You ought to feel good about the 5, the 4 with Dylan Cardwell, and I guess Chaney Johnson, and then the 3 with Chad Baker, Mazzara. I mean, there's just a lot of guys to like when you look at this. Chris Moore's probably going to be coming off the bench. I mean, this is a guy that was a starter for you before he kind of got that injury earlier in the season. There's just so much about this team where you're like, okay, at times last season, they were close and they had terrible shooting down the stretch. And then all of a sudden, if that just gets a little bit better, but you look at all of the stats that are coming in, assuming it translates, there's just a lot to be excited about. I mean, Bruce Pearl teams, when they have these long shooting slumps, they still find a way to get close. They still find a way to be, not that far out of it and to show that they belong. And if they can just be a little bit better on offense than they were a season ago, wow. Daryl and I said this on our Saturday morning show that we dropped, where we just talked about basketball the whole time. Be sure to check that out if you want more basketball coverage. But we believe that this is a top 4 team in the SEC. And I think Johni Broome coming back solidifies that, because he could have left. And I think it was Justin Hokanson that wrote about this at Auburn Live in the corner message boards, where the feeling is Johni Broome kind of got the vibe that Bruce Pearl brought enough back in where they could possibly make a run for something special. And that something special is a championship, both at the conference level and then obviously postseason action in the NCAA tournament. It's a lot to be excited about. Johni Broome, thanks for coming back to Auburn. Coming up, Lindsay Crosby. Speaking of championships, Auburn baseball could be fighting for one. Lindsay Crosby of AuburnDaily.com, and baseball's Lindsay Crosby, as I like to call him, will join us to preview this Auburn Regional next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Joining us now on Locked On Auburn, it's Lindsay Crosby, Auburn baseball expert, and we now have some more information as the field is set for a little postseason baseball. Of course, Auburn's hosting a regional. We learned that over the weekend, but now as a national seed, they are hosting a situation where I feel pretty good about it. Hosting Penn, hosting Samford, hosting Southern Miss. You told me to pump the brakes a little bit. What team specifically, or teams specifically, are you saying, hey, okay, this is a team to watch here?
So I think this sounds not how I intended. I'm not too worried about Samford. Okay. Nothing against Samford. They're the 3 seed. So Penn is one of those schools that it's an Ivy. They played South Carolina very close to open the season. They won a series against Texas A&M last year. They won their series this year against Tulane, who's in the conference. They have a very talented roster, especially with the pitching. But Southern Miss is kind of a tough draw, and thankfully, you're not going to get them in game 1. Southern Miss went 41-17 this year. They won the Sun Belt. It's their first time playing in the Sun Belt Conference tournament. And they've got that emotional lift of our coach, Scott Berry, is stepping down after the season. He's retiring after a long career. And so, we have to win for Scott. And so it's not the worst draw. Trust me, there are much worse draws in this whole thing. Shout out to some teams like, I don't know, Alabama maybe?
Yeah. It's definitely the best draw in the state. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely the best draw in the state.
Right.
You're not a 16 seed Alabama, but you don't overlook this and start automatically thinking, okay, what are we doing for supers? You do have to handle your business this weekend. Now, Auburn has shown that they can do that, but just don't look past this matchup. You'll have Penn on Friday night, and then if you win, you play on Saturday night, and if you win again, you play on Sunday afternoon. So it's a good draw. It's not a great draw, but it's a good draw. And again, it could have been a lot worse. And you are paired with the number 4 national seed in Clemson. Right. So that is Clemson. They are hosting Charlotte, Lipscomb, who you have played, and Tennessee.
There we go.
A lot of the statistical predictions actually, despite Clemson being one of the hottest teams in the country, Tigers so hot right now, a lot of predictions have Tennessee winning that regional. And if that happens, and Auburn wins their regional, Plainsman Park would host a super regional. So
which would be incredible.
Which would be amazing. That would be fantastic. That would sell out faster than regionals did today, which was like 17 minutes.
Yeah, which seems a little long, if I'm being honest with you.
It probably was faster. By the time I finally got in and looked, I'm like, oh, okay, it's sold out. It's been 17 minutes since the tweet went up. It's been at least 17 minutes.
Got it. Yeah. So tell me. All right. So obviously, strategy with a regional is a little bit different than a super regional. Super regionals are it's just a series, right? It's like a normal weekend series. Regional plays a little bit different because you have the option to play more games in theory, but it's just it's a bunch of double elimination tournaments. And so the important thing is winning the first 2 games. You go 2-0, and somebody will in every regional. Like, the odds of you coming out of that regional are very, very high. So walk us through, in your mind. Auburn will play Penn. We know that they'll play Penn Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. And then if they beat Penn, they'll play the winner of the other game. So Auburn, in a perfect world, plays Penn and then probably Samford. Probably not going to happen that way, but that's kind of what you want to happen if you're Auburn. Pitching's been a big thing, right? Like, does Auburn have 2 arms that you feel comfortable with kind of getting those first 2 wins? Is a long way of me kind of beating around the bush and asking that question.
Yeah. And I think the way that it works is part of this depends on the health of Christian Herberholz, right? He was one of those guys that stepped up in conference play along with Tommy Vail, along with Chase Alsop. And so you've got Tommy Vail as your guy. If it's me, and this is just spur of the moment. We just got this draw a few minutes ago. We're trying to figure this out. I don't necessarily think I'm throwing Tommy Vail in game 1 against Penn. I'm saving Tommy Vail because I'm likely, statistically, to face Southern Miss in game 2. And Southern Miss has a very good offense. Penn's strength is their pitching. Southern Miss has a very good offense. And so what I'm doing is I'm throwing either Herberholz or Alsop in game 1. I'm throwing Vail in game 2, assuming obviously that I win game 1. And again, you're what's most likely your path here, assuming Auburn wins their games, is after Penn on Friday, you probably play Southern Miss on Saturday. And if you win that, then you're playing the winner of Southern Miss and whoever between Samford and Penn wins, which I think probably would be Penn.
So you're high on Penn. I've always been a pencil guy, but you like Penn.
High on Penn. Penn. Blue, fine points.
Sure.
Yeah, and so if Auburn wins their first 2 games, like you said, very, very likely to advance out of the regional. That's just the way it works. But if everything breaks the way that I'm expecting, you're playing the winner of Southern Miss and Penn from Sunday morning on Sunday afternoon. And if you win that, the regional is over. If that other team wins, you have a 4th game on Monday. I believe you have the starters between Alsop, Vail, and Herberholz, assuming he's available, which I think he will be.
Okay.
You have the starters to make it through a weekend like that, unless you have to go to that 4th game. And then that's the question of, well, who do we use now? Who are we able to save somebody for game 4?
When you look at Auburn, the biggest advantage in this regional isn't Plainsman Park, in my opinion. It's Butch Thompson. I mean, all this guy does seemingly is win regionals. Doesn't matter where they are. He just has a knack for winning regionals. And pitching is such a big part of that, right? And he's a pitching guy, and he's so good at getting his staffs to peak at the right time, which certainly seems like that's what's happening. Does he win another one, Lindsay? Can Butch Thompson win another regional in his time at Auburn?
At the risk of jinxing it, my very early prediction is yes. Not only can he win another regional at Auburn, but it would be this one.
Yeah.
This is a winnable regional. This is not a nightmare draw. Shout out to some schools who just have an absolute disaster of a draw.
Maybe other ones in the state even.
Yeah. Maybe somebody like an Alabama who has to have a Boston College and an angry Troy team in their house. And then if they win, they get paired with number 1 overall Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. That's awful. But yeah, so this is a winnable regional.
Would you bet on Alabama in the regional?
Ooh, too soon.
Sorry.
That's a good question. I wonder if that's going to be on the board or not. I'm guessing probably not.
I don't know. I feel like they flushed a lot of that situation.
Yeah,
so who knows?
They've already kind of fixed that.
I killed your train of thought on that.
No, you're good. You're good.
You're predicting Auburn to come out of this region.
I'm predicting Auburn early to come out of this regional. And then if they go to Clemson, I'm predicting that to go to 3 games. I don't know if that would be who would win in 3, which Tigers team would win in 3, but I am predicting that would go to 3 games.
Sure.
Do want to point out that Plainsman Park, things work differently in regionals. Auburn is at home, but they don't get to treat it like it's their home park. The NCAA controls everything. They controls when you can access the field, even the week leading up before the rest of the teams get there. They control which clubhouse you use or locker room, who's home and who's away and things like that. But the one thing that can change the game about Plainsman Park is the crowd. It's obviously already sold out. You'll have viewing, standing room only, viewing room, first come, first serve in Operation Atmosphere, the deck, things like that. That is something that can legitimately change and impact a game. And so if you are a fan of Auburn baseball, if you're not able to buy third-party tickets, still consider coming out, being there around the park, making the noise. Butch Thompson has talked before to us in the media about the effect the fans have on the team, how it makes the team better, it makes opposing teams worse. And Auburn is going to need that this weekend.
Yep, there's no doubt about it. Lindsay Crosby covering this team better than anyone. Lindsay, where can they find all of that content and information?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball and all of the Auburn baseball writing, auburndaily.com.
We will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.